Hey, what's up, guys? This is Dr. Andrea Peters from Espresso Unicorn. We're back with Humanity Over Hues, and I'm going to give a quick PSA before I get into this wonderful guest that I have today. So, Espresso Unicorn envisions a world where individuality thrives within a tapestry of shared humanity. We cultivate hope and inspire its sustainment in a hurting society. Our apparel is a canvas for self expression, and our actions reflect our commitment to the human collective effort. We believe in the transformative power of education and to strive to empower individuals through our philanthropic initiatives. Join the dialogue on our Humanity Over Hues podcast as we explore critical topics and inspire change. Discover our initiatives and become a part of the change at expressounicorn.com. Follow us on social media and stay connected. All right, so I have a wonderful guest today, and you guys know how I always talk about my guests because I absolutely love them. Because we ensure at Espresso Unicorn and specifically on Humanity Over Hues that we bring subject matter experts to you. We're not bringing people who, played this role on TV, right? We're bringing people to you that have worked in these spaces, who continue to work in these spaces. They have done research and they are bringing truth. They are not bringing just opinions, but they are bringing truth and facts. And so today we have Major Retired JB McGinnis. Who has a 25-year distinguished career in the U.S. Army as an Army engineer. So those who know, I'm an Army engineer, so he's near and dear to my heart. He was actually a part of my first organization that I went to when I was, as he would call it, a bubbling second lieutenant. And so he also has a bachelor degree in education and a master's degree in human resource management. And so I would like to turn the mic over to him so he can give us a little bit more about him, whether or not he wants to tell us about his family or just share, what's on his heart before we get into some of the questions here today. But thank you so much for being with us, and the floor is yours, JB.
Well, thank you for having me, Doctor. Another congratulations. You're awesome. Anyway, my name is JB McGinnis, and I'm a financial literacy wealth management expert. What I do is I travel around the country teaching young men and women about financial literacy and about money management and wealth management, how to get out of debt if they're in debt, how to stay out of debt if they're not in debt. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, born on the South Side. And I grew up in a poor environment, and I decided after high school I was going in the Army. So I enlisted in the Army, and I was a dental tech and dental hygienist in the Army, and decided to go to OCS after I'd been in a number of years and became an engineer officer. That's why I met, you know, the good doctor here, and I went on to retire as a major. And I got into financial literacy and teaching financial literacy from the Army. I had a soldier when I was a buck sergeant that bounced a check, and my platoon sergeant, first sergeant, said I need to get him squared away. I brought him in, taught him some things, and he told somebody who told somebody who told somebody. And next thing I know, I'm teaching several people. And it filled my heart to know that people were, one, trust me enough to follow my guidance, but two, could follow my guidance and grow from where they were and move on to better things. And I'm all about financial independence. I'm not about getting rich, especially getting rich quick. I'm about financial independence where you can sit at home and make enough money while you sleep to cover all your bills and the things that you want to do in leisure. And so that's what I call financial freedom. It's much better than making, $200,000, $300,000 a year, but you have to work, 60 hours, 70-hour weeks. And so I just honed in on that. And I just kept teaching and teaching until I got to the point where, as I said, I need to do this and reach more people. And so I started doing seminars. And once I started doing seminars, people in the audience say, hey, I need you to come and do a seminar at this place in this location. And so I went on, and before you know it, I have over 300 presentations under my belt from all over the country, from talking to people who, are very high earners to people who work at McDonald's. It doesn't matter. my rationale, my angle is get your mindset right first, and then everything else tends to fall into place with discipline. And so, my family part, I am married, happily married. My wife is a gem. She's here. She's an attorney. I have two daughters. I have a daughter that's 40 years of age. Her name is Precious, and a daughter is 37. Her name is Ebony. And they both live in the DMV area, right up there where you are. And they are gems as well. They are so funny. They are something else. And so I'm a family man. I love my family. I love to teach my family. I love to be a leader. One of my brothers said, "Man, you do so much." And, it's just like it seems to be overwhelming. I told him, leadership is a privilege. It is a privilege to have people follow you as a leader. And I have taken on that mantra, and that's what I'm going to do until my dying day. And so you'll find me in my free time mentoring a host of young people from groups of 12 to 17-year-olds to 25-year-olds, you name it. I'm here to give advice and here to guide people in the right direction because I have had a level of success to whereas I am now financially independent. And that is so important to me. It is so important to be able to focus on what I love to do so that I can become and continue to be a subject matter expert and teach others to see things in a different light. And I always tell my audience, if I can do it, there's no way you can't do it because I didn't have a me when I was growing up. And so most of my audience, they're smart people, smarter than I'll ever be. And therefore, if they get the systems down and the mindset, they can accomplish a great number of things financially. And that's what it's all about.
That's great. I heard a few things that I definitely want to hit on, but systems and mindsets, that's huge. And either one of those can set you back. It doesn't matter what organization you're in. But before we get there, you said OCS. So, for those who don't know what that acronym is, and not that military type, right? It's Officer Candidate School. So, I had to back up. I was gonna stop you, and I was like, "Oh no, let me let him go because he's flowing right now." But yeah, so thank you for that. Now, one of the other things that you said, and it kind of ties back to my point that I just made, but the perspective and the mindset. So you got to tell us about your gym that's that's out there for people to pick up off the shelf, and that's Mindset First, Money Second. So talk to us about that book and what drove you to write this book.
Yeah, mindset first, money second was dancing in my mind for a decade, I promise you. I had all the things that I needed to speak to people and to teach them and guide them in the direction that I think that is important to go in. And my wife is a published author and she published her own book. And I was telling her that, go ahead, do your book. I still got my book in my mind. And once you finish and your book takes its course, as most books do, then we'll start on my book. And we did just that. And I wanted to do the book because I have so many people that come to me and say, "How did you get started? What can I do? What, what systems did you use? How did you get where you are?" And all these questions. And now I can simply tell people, go get the book. Mindset First, Money Second, the things I did to stop living paycheck to paycheck for good. It's on Amazon. It was Amazon's bestseller. I was so proud that it was an Amazon bestseller, and it became number two in another category, only behind that darn Dave Ramsey. He had two books out. But I was so gracious to be and grateful to be number three behind Dave Ramsey. His the two books were number one and number two. But this book was just inspired by me wanting to be able to give people something to say, read this, and this will set you on the right track, especially for starting out. And I told my wife about it, and she said, let's do it. I told her I have it in my head. I can speak it. She types, we pause, she edits it, formats it, and then boom, it was born. And so shout out to my wife, Mel McGinnis, for bringing my mental vision and my thought process into print. And once it was in print, that was it. I mean, it just took off. It's been selling. It's been out for 2 years. It came out November 15th in 2023. So it'll be out in 2 years and a couple of weeks on my mom's birthday, as a matter of fact. And it has really been a blessing to be able to say I'm the author of this book. I have people that contact me from all over the country saying, wow, I was so inspired by this story because it's a lot of stories and things that I did while I was in the military, when I was a kid, my thought process, my mindset. And I named it Mindset First, Money Second after a long list of potential topics. But that topic just stuck out to me and it kept coming back because a lot of people think that once I get the money, I'm good. No, you have to have the right mindset. And if you have the right mindset, the money will come, but you have to have the right mindset. And I use the analogy and I use the example of how many people have seen the documentary, the 30 for 30 documentary on ESPN called Broke. And these professional athletes have so much money and they end up broke because they don't have the right mindset. So it's not about just about the money. It's about having the right mindset and breaking the psychological aspects of to debt and breaking those cycles. And once you do that with the right mindset and discipline, you can really soar.
Yeah, that's a great segue into, one of the first questions that we kind of talked about previously. So, what common money mistakes do people make and how can they avoid them outside of the mindset, right? We know that's kind of it can be a psychological thing, it can be a cultural thing, but what are those mistakes that you often see people make?
Well, there are many, and I like to say those mistakes are represented by a pie, and that pie has slices. So there are many slices to that pie. But one of the slices is the discipline part of the keeping up with the Joneses. Our society is so commercial. We are so focused on how we look, what people are going to say about us, what is the now name brand fashion trend that we can buy, and those things uh, create a barrier, a psychological barrier to financial success, or should I say, a barrier, and that barrier keeps you in debt. And so I tell people and try to use this analogy and say, or this example. My grandkids, I tell them, I'm starting a 529 college education fund for them. And what I want you to do, which is what I'm going to do, is I'm not going to buy them a lot of things for their birthday and Christmas. I may buy them one thing and the rest I'm going to take what I would have purchased and put it in an account. I'm going to have them understand that what you get for Christmas in 2020 is going to be more than likely meaningless in 2025. However, what I was going to give you in 2020, stashed away into an account, an interest-bearing account, or a money market account, IRA, or the S&P 500, will be a nice something you won't forget in 2025. And so I try to use those things to make people think and say, this what I'm buying today. It won't matter 2 or 3 years from now. In most cases, 6 months. It just won't. But if you stash it away and that money makes money, you'll remember it in 5 years and you'll say to yourself, wow, look at what that $150 turned into 5 years later. And as opposed to look at what that $150 I purchased this for in 2020. And now it's an old pair of shoes that I hold up and say, I don't even know what I'm going to do to these. I guess I'll throw them away. And so that mistake, that trying to keep up with the Joneses, that trying to look good, trying to look impressive, champagne taste, Kool-Aid money, I like to call it. It really keeps a lot of our people down. And I use my family as an example. And I tell them, if you can break out of that stereotypical thought process and take money and try to make it grow, then you'll be so much better off in the years to come.
Yeah, so JB, I got to jump in there because what you're asking people to do is to put their impulses, right, on hold for later gain. But the society that we live in right now is a society of instant gratification, more so than it's ever been before. Blame it on the internet, blame it on whatever, right? But that is hard for people to do. And so, how do you help them see past? Even if it's not just keeping up with the Joneses, but it's just the point that they want that gratification sooner, right? And I mean, we can see it in businesses, we can see it in every space of our society where people want things now, not later.
That's difficult. That is very difficult. And so what I try to do is I try to use real world scenarios. I try to let the young people see what their impulses can be in the future and try to dampen those impulses and even ask those people. For instance, I tell them, I was a victim. I was a victim of, let me tell you what I did. I had a car and I had two set of rims on my car. I had 5 stars on one side and I had Euro mesh on the other side because I wanted people to see it. And now that money I spent on those rims and tires mean absolutely nothing. And so uh, I have an app. It's an app that young people can use to actually play in the stock market. It's fake money. It's not their real money, but I want them to see how tamping and controlling their impulses and putting a little bit aside. And you don't have to take your impulses and throw them all away. You can say, I'm not going to act on every impulse. And when I don't act on it, I'm going to take that money and see what that money makes. So I have an app and it's called Best Broker. And Best Broker is an app where you can take play money and use it to invest in companies that you use on a regular basis. So I tell my clients, I tell my young mentees, I tell the people that are in my audience, I took 25,000 play dollars, it wasn't my money, and I put it into 4 stock because these are the stocks back then that I used and I trusted, so to speak. Walmart, Apple, Pfizer, which is a pharmaceutical company, and Tesla. Now, I know Elon Musk lost his mind, and that's a whole nother topic. But those are the 4 stocks that I put 25,000 play dollars into. That was exactly 7 years ago in this month. And that stock of $25,000 now is $195,000. So I tell my young people, I'm not asking you to go and invest in those stocks. I'm asking you to take your impulses and try to control them. And even if you control every other impulse and take that money and put it in something and have the discipline so that you can see it grow. Because I also ask them, look at your prior impulses and the things that you have purchased and you could not do without. And now you look at it and say, oh, that's just an old jacket. Now that's just to owe this or owe that. But if you take that money and you put it in something else that's going to actually grow, you can say, whoa. And so later on, when we talk about another method that I use, it's called the 1/3 method. And my 1/3 method talks about taking the money that you were going to spend and split it into thirds, save a third of it, invest a third of it, and spend a third of it. And you can spend it on that impulse. So because I found that when people try to go cold turkey, they fall off the horse, they're back to where they started. So I try to feed those impulses a little bit, not buffet, but a happy meal. And so they can get the taste, but not overdo it. And that money that they use to for the future will serve them so well. And I have some success stories where I can speak to where they say, wow, I mean, I can deal with that and I can relate to it and I can definitely see myself, you know, being happy that I tamped and took control of those impulses at that particular moment in time.
Yeah, that's great. But what that sounds like too is like a young person not having a lot of obligations. They're just now getting into the job market, or, maybe they've been there, but again, don't have tons of obligations where their money is going to. And you're kind of helping them figure out, okay, well, this is more money than I've ever had, right? So like, what do I do with it versus just going to the mall or buying off of Amazon? And next thing you know, I'm living paycheck to paycheck because I'm getting all these things. Now, what do you tell someone that is established, right? That may not be able to put a third here and a third there and a third there because, their standard of living is so high where, if they have, a third left to, survive on versus their bills, that's a lot because that's the reality, especially of our middle class to lower middle class, if not lower class societies that we tend to see that they're kind of within that space of paycheck to paycheck. And there's not much that's going into savings, let alone investing.
I agree and I understand where you're coming from. And here's what I do. I tell them when I first started out, people would tell me, or I would say to myself, I have to save money. I have to. Then I would also do the flip side and say, I ain't got no money to save. It's all going out. I am busted. My pockets are inside out. So here's what I did, and I'm certain everyone can do this. I found money that I was giving away. I found loopholes and things that I was giving away to people that I really didn't need. And I knew that I was going to sacrifice now or sacrifice when I got older. And my family, my older generation, was a great example of what I did not want to do. I did not want to sacrifice in my 60s, 70s, and 80s and live on a limited income. So I said, I'm going to sacrifice now. And so let me tell you a couple of things I did now. This is what I did today. You probably can't do a lot of this, but I also give them a checklist of things that they could cut back on that they are certain they're doing now. For example, I can make 6 meals out of $12. And let me tell you, it's real simple. I can go to Sam's Club and buy one chicken for $4.98. I can go to Walmart and get a bag of rice, and I can go to same Walmart and get enough broccoli for 6 meals for $12. Now, do I have to eat those 6 meals in a row? No. But I can take those 6 meals and I can substitute them for what I was doing before. And let's say I was spending on 6 meals $150. Now I just spent 12. I can take that 100, that the difference between the two, which is 138, and I can take that 138 and I can split it in threes. I can take that 138 and I can save a third of it. I can take that 138 and I can invest a third of it. And I can take that 138 and I can increase my standard of living and go get me another meal. And if you do that with a lot of things, that's just one example. I'll tell you another one. This is something that I tell my clients, my audience. I love Downy. Downy smells so good to me. Some people like Snuggles. I got it. But one thing that we both can agree on, that stuff is expensive. It is, but I love the smell of it. And some people say, well, I gotta have my clothes smell clean. JB, I can't give up my Snuggles. And I tell them, you don't have to. Here's what I suggest you do. You can go to the dollar store, well, it's $1.25 now, and get a $1.25 Tupperware bowl. You can get a $1.25 pack of sponges. You can there's 3 sponges. You can cut them up in half. Now you got 6. You can put them in a bowl and put a cap full of Snuggles in the bowl and put 4 capfuls of water in the bowl. And now you just created dryer sheets. Wring it out, put that sponge in the dryer. You got doggone Snuggles. That bottle of Snuggles will last, listen, will last for 1 year. And you know what? You can't,
JB, wait. I got to
what?
know. Where'd you come up with that from? I
Let me tell you
love
where
it,
I
but
came
where
up
did you get
from.
that?
Because I knew that I didn't have money to save. When people say save money, I ain't got no money. Where am I going to use? I said, I have to find money I'm spending right now. So I went and got a book. It's called Suddenly Frugal by Leah Ingram. And she has a plethora of things in there that you do every day that if you change these systems, You can save money. Instead of buying 5 jugs of Snuggles a year, now you only got to buy one. And here's what I tell you, Snuggles and Downy only last a year. I bought a big jug and I said, I'm gonna keep this forever. Well, I didn't know that once you keep Downy for a year, it turns into gel, solid mass. Didn't know that because guess why? You use it within a year. Well, I had that, so now I only buy the small bottles. That method, you got dry sheets for a year of one small bottle of Downy. Those little things, just like bills, this little subscription here, this Netflix here, that adds up. Those things like that add up too. Another thing I did was, and you got to be careful about this, but this is what I did. We always use the lowest deductible when we have insurance. Why? Because if we have an accident, we say, I'm not paying $1,000 deductible. I want a $250 deductible. So if I have an accident, I can pay the $250 deductible. So I did the research and I found the average American has an accident when it's their fault and they have to use and have to pay a deductible every 7 to 10 years. That's according to the National Safety Highway Commission. So I said to myself, let me do the math on that. When was the last time I had an accident? It was back in 1984 where I had to pay a deductible. So I took my insurance because I had a Mustang GT and I was in my 20s. I took my insurance from 250 bucks a month to 150 bucks a month because I took my deductible from 250 to 1,000. And I just took the difference and saved it for 10 months. Now I got the $1,000. But if I did the math and said if I saved that $100 for 12 months times 7 years, that's over 9,400 bucks that I gave to an insurance company that I now get to keep in my pocket. So you have to make sure your lien holder will let you have $1,000 deductible because some will only go as low as 500, and that's fine. But you still save. So I said I'm going to look at every dollar that leaves my pocket, and I'm going to try to reduce every dollar that leaves my pocket by 10%. And so I had to do some sacrifice. I had to do some research. I had to look at things in order to cut my expenses back. And therefore, when I did that, I saved 400 bucks a month. And that was a great start because going paycheck to paycheck, and now you got 400 disposable dollars that you don't have nothing to do with is a great feeling. And that's what I used to pay my debt down, little by little. Well, first, I used to establish an emergency fund of $2,000, then pay off my debt little by little.
JB, that was completely hilarious, but I'm telling you, I'm taking some of those tips away and I look, I'm getting Linda's book, okay?
Leah
And
Ingram.
you said
Leah.
Leah.
Leah
Leah,
Ingram.
okay.
Suddenly
Let
frugal.
me write that. Leah. Looking for Linda out there. Okay. But so that's great. So you just talked about ways to cut expenses. You've also talked about, how you should really approach your budget with the third, what did you call it? The one-third method.
Mhm.
So, which is amazing. So now let's kind of hit on people who are looking to build wealth, right? Which is a little bit different than just managing money. Now we're talking about how do you duplicate that money. So, kind of how do you start that process with somebody who's not real familiar with that?
Okay, and I'll use myself as an example because my method was not, I didn't inherit any money. I started out broke as a joke, paycheck to paycheck, pockets inside out, and I used that method that I just spoke of by finding money that I was giving away. Well, let me go back to the first step. Get your mindset right. And I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Then finding money you're giving away. I found money that I give away. It was 350, 400 bucks a month. I took that, saved it till I had $2,000. And then I started to snowball my debt, my credit cards. I had my credit cards like this. I had a big, long list of them. And I just worked. It took some time, but I just worked on it. And then all along while I was doing this, got into my one-third plan while I was saving a third, investing a third, and spending a third to keep my standard of living going up because I found that most time if you do a cold turkey, you fall off. So that helps tremendously. But while I was doing that, I wanted to decide what my niche was. What am I going to do? Am I going to be a barber and open up a barber shop? Am I going to be a baker? Am I going to do real estate? Am I going to do stocks? What am I going to do when I get to the point where I'm, I was here, now I'm here, now I'm here, and I got a little money. I got 6 months living expenses after a couple of years in the bank. And now I'm taking 6 months stays. I don't touch it. Now I got some money here that, or at least I'm growing to the point where I can get some money where I can invest it in something to make my money make more money. So mine was real estate. My aunt owned real estate when I was little. I saw she was one of the only sustainable people in my family where she sustained herself. And I said, that's what I want to do. I saw her, I watched her moves. Now, yours doesn't have to be real estate. Yours could be, you want to start a mobile truck. Yours could be you want to open up a barber shop or whatever it is. You have to become a subject matter expert in that field. So what I did was I got real estate investing for dummies. I got property management for dummies. And I got a mentor. I got a mentor by happenstance. I was stationed at Shepherd Air Force Base as an instructor for a dental apprentice course. And there was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Ortiz. I worked with him for over a year. And one day I went to take my students to take a computer-based test. And he and I were sitting outside the office while they were taking the test. And I said, Mr. Ortiz, tell me something about yourself that nobody else knows. And he said, interesting question. He said, okay, I own 50 homes. What'd you say? I own 50 homes. I said, wow. I said, Mr. Ortiz, I'm reading Real Estate Investors for Dummies, Property Managers for Dummies. I just need a mentor, And he said, I can be your mentor. Every time you come up here to take tests, which was once a week, while they're taking the test for an hour, you and I sit down and I'll tell you some tips and tricks. Invaluable, invaluable. So while I was saving, while I was getting enough money to invest, it took me years. It took me 4 or 5 years to save up enough money to buy my first investment property. But with the know-how that I got from learning and the mentorship I got from Mr. Ortiz, by the time I had enough money, I was ready. Now, yours, once again, could be something else. But if you get the know-how and you get a mentor and you're vigilant and diligent about saving, you can take that down payment and invest in your dream and work your way up that ladder. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And so I learned the business side of it. I didn't just go out with a gamble. A gamble, high seven. Risk is calculated. These are the things that can go wrong. I use the Army's risk assessment process in almost everything I can do. I do. What is the worst thing that can happen? How can I prevent it? And even if it happens, what's my plan B? Saved me so much money, time, and heartache. And if you use that rationale, if I'm going to open up a barbershop, what's the worst thing that can happen? How can I prevent it from happening? And even if it happened, what's my plan B? I wanted to work in real estate, but I also wanted to open up a quick service restaurant. I decided on a Quiznos because I thought it was better than Subway. It was better than Subway, I didn't think. And so I opened up a Quiznos. And before I opened up my Quiznos, I asked myself those three questions. And what is the worst thing can happen? My Quiznos can close. How can I prevent it? I can be vigilant and I can do all the things I need to do with marketing and having great employees and doing all that. And what if you did all those things and it still happened? That happened to me. We had a recession. But I had a plan. As soon as the recession hit and I could no longer stay open, it wasn't viable, and Quiznos filed bankruptcy, I implemented my plan, and no one knew I closed my Quiznos because I had a plan, a strategic plan. And so that's what I would offer to people. I would tell them that it takes sacrifice, it takes discipline, but if I can do it, if I have a system in place and work those systems, then there's no reason why you can't do it as well. Once again, do your due diligence in saving, become a subject matter expert on the topic and the business you're going in, and get a mentor in that business. And when you do those three things, amongst other small little ancillary things, but those to me are the three most important things.
Yeah, those are huge. And especially when it seems like people run from mentors or the ones that should be mentoring don't give up the time, right? So yeah, I think full circle, like we all need to start investing more so in mentorship and then being a good mentee, right? Because that's a huge part of it too. You got somebody trying to give you all this knowledge and you hard headed, so you can have a mentor all day long, but they just hitting on a wall, So, anyways, so thank you for that. So, where I want to jump to, like, we're in October. And the reality is, we are at the doorway of the holiday season. All right. Like, literally, Halloween is in 2 days. And that really kicks off kind of the holiday season as we think about it. And so, in the landscape in which we live in, obviously, government shutdown has been going on for 29 days. And just bottom line, we live in a society that is an ultra affluent society as a whole, talking about the US, which means that prices of things consistently rise. And so, how do you help people navigate this time frame of the year without being broke, busted, and disgusted, by the time January 1st comes around?
We need to try to get away from the commercialization of holidays. And I know that's difficult. So I'm not asking you to go, cold turkey this year. I'm asking you to look at what you spent last year and try to cut back 20% and take that 20% and stash it and eventually get to the point to where it's not a big money, income, and equity draining time of the year. So here's what my wife and I decided we were going to do. We decided to go cold turkey, but I'm not asking you to do that. We decided that we were not going to spend more than $250 on each other. Now, you don't have to do that. You can set up an amount for you and your spouse or your significant other, or you and your children, and tell your children, this is what we spent last year. This year, we're going to cut back a little bit. You're going to get some things, but we're going to cut back a little bit. And then you can continue to do that to whereas you can try to get your children, your relatives to understand that I have to look out for my future. I'm not trying to go cold turkey and get anything, but I am going to start scaling back on it. And if you take a little bit at a time, it's much better than cutting off cold turkey, especially like you said, we're in this big bubble where some people feel if you don't buy me anything, you don't love me. And I say, let's try to ease out of that and try to make the holiday season about love, togetherness, and family. And so I know that's tough being in the culture that we're in and the way that our society preaches gifts and how we value those gifts. And I would say have a goal. Over the next 5 years, I'm going to scale back spending, just throw a generic number, $4,000 for Christmas. And I'm going to cut it back next year to only spend 3,500. And then the year after that, only 3,000. So that you can try to get out of that rat race. Because I ask people, and some people say, but JB, I gotta buy my son this, or I have to buy my wife that. And I tell them, go back and ask your wife, go back and ask your boyfriend, go back and ask your son, what did I get you for Christmas 3 years ago? And chances are they're gonna say, oh no, but I know what I want this year, right? And then if you can make what you've saved and what you didn't spend this year and show how it's grown to the for the next year, that kind of motivates people as well. But I'm telling you, this is a code that if I had the 100% fail-proof thing, I would be sitting back having somebody feed me on an island right now with grapes and somebody fanning me because we have gotten so caught up into the commercialization of the holidays that oftentimes in January, we are really busted. We are really busted. But I once again ask people to look back at what you bought, if not last year, 2 years ago. And oftentimes people will go, I can't remember, but I know it left me broke. I know it left me in a position where I was really struggling. And also just taking your disposable income and budgeting that disposable income and saying, this is all, I'm not going to go into debt to pay for gifts. I can spend my disposable income to start out and hopefully over the next year, not spend all of my disposable income and scale it back in sections. I think that works better for people than going cold turkey and telling the kids, y'all ain't getting nothing for Christmas this year. Um,
Yeah.
that works out better.
And that's with the assumption, right? And hopefully, after people have listened to this entire podcast, they get your book. But that's under the assumption that they know what their disposable income is and they abide by a budget, right? So the third.
Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah.
I go through a budget. And the way I go through my budget and from a presentation perspective, I just throw numbers up and say, this is how much we got to spend for the month. And y'all tell me how much rent, tell me how much groceries, tell me how it's this. And guess what? We've never made budget that way.
Yeah.
And I tell them that's the way we make budget in most of our households. We have
Hmm.
champagne and Kool-Aid money. And then I go back to where when I was starting out, trying to get on the right path, and I say, I wanted to live in an apartment, a condo that costs 2,100. There's no way I could afford it. So I got two roommates. Am I asking you to get a roommate? No. But I'm not asking. I'm asking you not to get a roommate. I'm telling you that you have to make it work within your budget. And if that means having your cousin come and live with you and y'all split some of the bills, then that works sometimes. You know who you are. You know if you can live with someone, but you also have to use other methods if you don't use that one to sacrifice because you're going to sacrifice now or you're going to sacrifice later. And also, I like to sacrifice. It was good for me to sacrifice while I was building, as opposed to scrambling and sacrificing and being in debt while I'm losing. And that helped. That rationale is so much more makes so much more sense. Where I sit back and say, I really haven't enjoyed going out like I used to, but I got a lot of money in the bank now, as opposed to I'm really having myself a good time, but these bill collectors are really hammering down my phone. And so if you try to do that trade-off, I think one is much better to deal with than the other.
Yeah. So we're having a great conversation. I love this. But we're coming to the close of this wonderful conversation. And so, as we think about Espresso Unicorn, we live in the space of hope. The reason why we do what we do, the reason why Humanity Over Hughes was birthed is because of the need for hope in our society right now. And so, how do you cultivate hope and help your clients sustain hope concerning finances, especially when they're learning new strategies and trying to form new positive habits, which we all know can be stressful. And really it can take us into this space, especially as adults, of that psychological hurdle, and it just kind of bears down on us because it's like, oh my gosh, why did it take me this long to learn? And then you're trying to stay focused, and then again, kind of going back to the question that I asked previously about, you already have all these mounting things on you. So how do you help them live in hope?
Well, I, the phrase sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was about to get custody of my daughter. Let me just briefly tell you my story and how my hope and my daughter helped me climb a hurdle that I thought was insurmountable. I knew I had to make a change, and most of us know I have to do something. I got to make a change. This is not it. I have fun for 2 days, and then 28 days of the month I'm scrambling. And so I promised myself time and time again I was going to get myself out of this bind. But guess what? I didn't hold myself accountable. It was difficult. So I looked in my daughter's eyes and I saw in her eyes that she needed me. And I promised her, not verbally, but I promised her she was not going to go through the trauma of living paycheck to paycheck with me, and I was going to do better. So my example to you is to Promise someone you do not like disappointing that you're not going to fail them. You can fail yourself, and we've done it often. But there are people in our family we say, if I tell my mama I'm going to do something, I do it. If I tell my brother I'm going to do something, I do it. If I tell my daughter or son that I'm going to do something, I do it. I'm certain you feel that way about your daughter. When you tell your daughter, I got you on this, it happens. And so I told my daughter, I'm going to get better. I'm going to make sure that I do something, come up with a system so that you don't reap the repercussions of my irresponsible actions. And that was it for me. That was my moment. So I'm asking people to dig deep and find their moment, to dig deep and find that person that they trust, know, and love, and put that person in front of them to hold them accountable to say, I'm going to stop doing what I used to do and turn a leaf. And even if it's saving $10 a week, $20 a week, then $50 a week. And here's the other part. Imagine your life. Not that you're filthy rich driving Bentleys and all that's not where I'm trying to get you to. Imagine a life where if you had $1,000, $2,000 emergency, you can go into your account and write a check and it's no problem. That is what's on the other side of this. It's not so much about driving expensive cars and fancy clothes. It's about when those things that are necessities come up, you can satisfy those necessities. I went downstairs in my house and tried to flush the toilet because my mother-in-law was coming by and my water wouldn't go down. Called my plumber, $800 right off the bat, right? I wrote the check. Imagine yourself not having problems financially and saying to yourself, I deserve to be there. It's not about this. It's about being mature and responsible enough to have money and not spending it and saying, that's for my rainy day. It's sunny out today. And it is such a good feeling to have issues come up and you be able to write that check and go, I'm okay. And you deserve that. And if you see yourself, imagine yourself on the other side of this and buckle down and make some changes. And slowly but surely, the water starts to come down and you get to breathe and you say, you know what? I'm going to try even harder. I'm going to try to save instead of 150 bucks this month. I'm going to try to save 200 and I'm going to do things. And I may be able to take on a little extra little side hustle, something that I do well. That, I know how to cut hair, not professionally, but I could cut hair for $20, you know. Because did you know people are charging $100 to cut hair now in some places? I'm like, whoa. So those little bitty things can add up so much. And then on the other side, once again, I retired when I got out of the army. That was it. So I'm not working anymore. I set myself up to where my retirement check, my rental income, I can live a comfortable, normal life. And when I wake up in the morning, this is my alarm clock. Do I got money flowing out of my pockets everywhere where I could just get? No, but it is such a great feeling to be able to get up in the morning and do what the heck I want to do and go where I want to go. And I tell everybody that's listening to this podcast, you can be on the other side of this as well. It is for you. It is for you. And if you just buckle down, as we say in the hood, 10 toes down, it can happen for you too. Because I'm no better than you are. No better. Those small.
Yeah. I think what you just described for me is first off, as your, analogy goes, you're no longer treading water, right? You're walking through the water. And then the other side of that is it is a level of peace, right? Where you can live in a space where not that you don't want these things, but you have the discipline to not go out and get them because you know that rainy day will come and you're not going to have to stress about calling mama nams or whoever to try to get money together or throwing out a GoFundMe because something happened out of the blue. And like that is just a totally different way to live. And who wouldn't want that?
Wow. And we can all do it. We can all do it. It is staring you in the face, and I want you to go get it because it's there. And you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to have a system. In my book, in Mindset First, Money Second, I talk about the steps and just baby step them, walk step by step. And man, it is such a great feeling. It is such a great
Yeah.
feeling. And also because you're in that piece, you can focus on doing what you're passionate about. And when you get good about what you're passionate about, people will pay you to do it anyway. And so now, but then you have the schedule where you say,
Mhm.
I want to work that day. So I don't, and so that works out so great. And before we close, I want to use this story that we talked about a couple days ago. It is so much more different swinging your feet out of the bed and putting your feet on the ground to go to work where you don't want to go, as opposed to swinging your feet out of the bed and putting them on the ground and go on vacation. And that's where I
Yeah.
want you. Go do what you want to do. And getting up early to do what you want to do is such a great feeling. It's so much better than doing something you don't want to do. So that's in your future.
Yeah. Thank you for that motivation, inspiration, but more so the facts. And so, JB, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you. You're a dear friend of mine, and you're an inspiration to so many, including me. And so, Espresso Unicorn followers, thank you for always vibing with us. And I hope once again you view this as an amazing podcast with an amazing guest that is bringing knowledge and not just opinions. And it's things that you can put into practice immediately. You don't have to wait. You can start today. And so, from the bottom of my heart, from Espresso Unicorn, thank you for joining us for Humanity Over Hughes. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.